Donald Trump is moving the troops to the nation's capital, okay? That's where we're starting off today. That is where we are starting our journey on this wonderful morning. The Trump regime, I repeat, is moving its military to the nation's capital. This is quite literally what happens in historic fascist movements. This is how it goes. Okay, this is how it starts. This is how it goes. We're doing it. And it's not even like, it's not on some like 2016 fuck Trump shit. This is just straightforward. This is a straightforward attempt to at least have like some semblance of control when full tilt fascism comes our way. And it's already at our doorstep. And of course, the hilarious side of this otherwise like somewhat scary story is that the inflection point for this military takeover of law enforcement duties in the nation's capital is that a dude by the name of fucking Big Balls got his ass beat by a 15-year-old teenage girl and a 15-year-old teenage boy. That is the reason why we are now having a fucking fascist military takeover of the nation's capital. What are we doing? I'm losing my fucking mind.
The nation's capital put on notice, awaiting the arrival of hundreds of National Guard troops as the president places Washington, D.C. under federal control.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
President Trump declaring a public safety emergency in D.C., placing attorney.
Yeah, Big Balls is a Franz Ferdinand, you know? That's what we're doing. That's like we don't even have like a real fake crystal knock inflection point. Like
General Pam Bondi in charge of the D.C. Metropolitan Police and activating some 800 National Guard troops, the first time the National Guard has been deployed to D.C. since after the 2021 attack on the Capitol. Overnight, the Secretary of Defense saying they'll be ready to act.
They're going to be proactive. If you take an action or a shot at them, there will be a consequence. We're not going to have National Guards just sitting there like this, seeing a crime committed and not do something about it.
The Guard is being deployed to assist with law enforcement activities. Guardsmen always have weapons available, according to a U.S. official, but whether they will be armed for these duties is up to their commander. The president is painting an apocalyptic picture of the nation's capital, adamant crime is spiraling out of control. But the official figures show crime in the capital is actually in decline. Violent crime recently hitting a 30-year low, down 26% since last year. Burglary down 19%. Murder down 12%.
When we think of emergencies, it usually involves surges in crime.
Mayor Muriel Bowser acknowledges there's little she can do. D.C. is not a state, and the president has the authority to take over the city's police department.
And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
Trump, eager to show he's tough on crime, has shown a willingness to use military force in major cities. Earlier this summer, sending 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines to quell immigration protests in Los Angeles. Now he's warning other cities, saying if this model works in Washington, he may use it to fight crime in places like Chicago, Baltimore, and Oakland, all notably Democratic-led cities.
We're not going to lose our cities over this, and this will go further.
Guard troops, we're told, will be in position in the coming week. Now, it's not clear how long they will stay on the streets of D.C., but the president has said he's willing to go even further and bring in additional military forces if needed. Michael.
Yeah, that would have helped on January 6th, Mary. And, you know, another headline this morning, the president naming a new top official in charge of the jobs report after he fired the last one.
Yeah, the president announcing a new commissioner for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, E.J. Antony of the Conservative Heritage Foundation. He has criticized the Bureau in the past and questioned its data. He also contributed to the Conservative Project.
I mean, massaging the numbers, deploying troops to the fucking nation's capital, black bagging people from the streets. And then when there's any sort of inevitable resistance against that sort of thing, utilizing the military to violently squash attempts to stop that sort of thing from happening. It's here. We have concentration camps. We have concentration camps. We have concentration camps in this country currently. Okay, is here. This is like, I think this is exactly how this kind of shit happens. Like historically, this is how it has happened. I don't know what more you need to see to arrive at this conclusion. It's just like, what do you want him to do? Run around saying he's a fucking Nazi? Is that what you want to do? Is that what you need to hear from him? I mean, he's got people in his cabinet that have fucking Sig Heiled. You got Elon Musk Sig Heiling at the inauguration. You even got that. Fuck the mainstream media bullshit reporting. This coverage is so weak. Brother, close your eyes and imagine Joe Biden doing that in a red state. Okay? Just do it. And there was good reason for him to do so when Greg Abbott was actively ruining the executive authority over immigration, actively defying the interests of the federal government. He could have done that. Imagine a military takeover of Texas. How would you react? They would have flipped out. I'm just like, this is not weak coverage. I don't know what you're talking about. Unless you're saying the media is not being aggressive enough in their commentary. Maybe that's what you're saying, and I didn't understand it. Like, I have detailed exactly how this is going to happen, and it's going along in the exact ways that I said it was going to happen.
2025 blueprint. Now, this comes after the president fired.
Oh, you're saying the media is weak on calling this bullshit out. Even my hog parents are increasingly saying they just can't watch the news. They don't watch because they know they're complicit, but they have stopped denying this shit isn't happening. Yeah, this is exactly the kind of like aesthetic stuff that Americans, regardless of what their political background is not in favor of either. I think a lot of this stuff is being, I think a lot of this stuff that's doing, what? You're giving 2019 voice today? Maybe. I think a lot of what's going on is happening specifically for like extremely online aspects of the movement. Like, this shit is not something that like average Republicans, if they pay attention to it, this is not the type of shit that average Republicans would be on board with, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see like regular ass Republicans, like lifelong Republicans, turning around and just being like, oh my God, this is great. I love sending the fucking police. Like, fascism theater is not something that everyday Americans will be on board with. It's kind of like when I got detained, there were people, immediate family members that had been to January 6th, like that had gone to the Capitol on January 6th, like massive Trump supporters. Okay, I know people who are not my family members, but like friends of mine and their immediate family members. When they heard about that, they were pissed off that the government was literally detaining people because they pegged them as political dissidents. Like, that's the type of shit. I feel like that is the type of shit that pisses off even Republicans in general. Big Balls got beat up by a 15-year-old in D.C. and Trump sends the National Guard. 15-year-olds get murdered in schools across the country and Trump sends thoughts and prayers. Yeah. There's a bunch of interesting stuff, but it's framed as law and order, so Republicans do kind of like it. Also, there's a lot of black people in D.C. No, for sure. This is for that reason. He's doing it for that reason because D.C. is a black city, okay? That is the main reason. This is a way to stop. This is a way to just basically signal in the same way that, like, when you do ICE raids in, like, Los Angeles and you rip apart families, like, you're saying to your base, to the most racist elements in your base, like, I'm doing this for you. I got you. No more Mexicans. Like, I hear you, right? This is the same version of that, but just for black people. Ironically enough, it's also for the same base because those guys want brown people and black people to get the fuck out of the country, right? Or to be violently suppressed. So you're designing this like incredibly fucking violent, ridiculous, this incredibly violent, ridiculous enforcement mechanism specifically to soothe the interests of some of the most reactionary elements within your base. I don't think you can keep pushing like this without significant response. I think this creates a lot of animosity. The problem, of course, is that you don't have a well-organized opposition party against this kind of thing that's like actively egging on the population to respond, to actually throw a fit, to fuck shit up. You don't have that anymore within the Democratic Party. They're gone. And you kind of need that. This is not me shepherding people into the Democratic Party. This is just me saying that, like, you do need that because you need your parents and your grandparents to also be on the fucking streets. There's no other way to stop this. And if your parents and your grandparents are going to get on the streets, the media has to cover it. The media has to cover the anger and the resentment that people feel. Okay? And in order for the media to cover it, you need the opposition party to actually go out on television with regular frequency and constantly give quotes and constantly say, this is fucked up. This is pissing us off. This is not what we are. This is not what America is supposed to be about. What the hell is going on? We need to go out and protest.
The previous commissioner claiming without evidence that last month's poor job.
Or people don't do crime? What do you mean? What? People don't do crime? Dog. Crime is a constant, okay? When you live in an environment where there's poverty and wealth, crime is always going to exist. But what you're supposed to look at is if crime is out of control. Trump claims crime is out of control. DC numbers show the exact opposite. It is at a 30-year low at this point in DC, which means that for all its faults and failures, what they have done so far has been kind of working. This doesn't mean that there isn't crime that's still taking place. Crime is still happening, of course. Crime happens all around. It's a matter of whether you tune into it or not. And unfortunately, despite the fact that red states have higher homicide rates and higher rates of gun violence than fucking blue states do, we all seem to think that blue states, where there's a lot of black people, are the only place where crime is manifesting. I wonder why. If I were to ask an average person on the streets, who has a higher violent crime rate? Which state has a higher violent crime rate? New York or South Carolina? They would say New York, but it's actually fucking South Carolina because it's directly a consequence of poverty. It's directly a consequence of people's material conditions. Military will only target criminals? Yeah, no, totally. Just like they always do. Brother, the military has no training for law enforcement purposes, okay? You have the military police, but even then, they don't do necessarily a good job. Cops don't even do a fucking good job with this shit, especially in America. The military is even worse than that. The military has one purpose. It's to kill, okay? That is what the job of the military is. They kill people, okay? That's what they do. They kill people. They get sent somewhere and they shoot. They use lethal weapons and they shoot. They don't do crowd control. They don't do any of that shit. They are there to kill. This is precisely the reason why there are laws in the books against this very same thing that's happening currently. Okay? Now, DC, of course, is unique because it's not a fully fleshed out state. It's a District of Columbia. So obviously, for that reason, you can federalize. You can basically do a forcible takeover of the policing in DC. That's probably why this is the entry point for Donald Trump to test this process out. There's also, after the 48-hour takeover, you have to justify, like in the first 30 days, exactly why you need to control or federalize the policing in DC. And then after the 30 days are over, you have to go back to Congress and get congressional approval to continue extending the military occupation of the nation's capital. There are also rules against this sort of thing, specifically designed so that, you don't have some fucking random psychopathic fascist fucking leader decide single-handedly that he's just going to use the military as a mechanism of law enforcement on domestic soil. Like that's the whole point of this is that you're not supposed to do this. Has it been stated where the National Guardsmen are coming from that are being deployed to D.C.? It's Southern troops that are being sent to D.C. I'm not sure. I don't know where they're coming from.
Bob's report was manipulated to make him look bad. Michael.
Well, you know, numbers don't lie, Mary. That's what they say.
Yeah, crime is always relative. Is crime bad? Yeah. Is it particularly bad more than usual? No. Has it ever been better than it is now? Also no. Crime rates in the U.S. fell off a cliff in the 90s and never went back. But people still have an understanding of crime based on memories of the 1970s, especially among those who are the children of white flight. There's also a different assessment of crime. What we actually perceive as crime is entirely different than what is actually crime. Okay? We perceive homeless people, which is the most visible aspect of poverty, as crime. We see Target locking up, deodorant as a visible aspect of crime. Many of the things that we see as crime that we actually experience as like crime rates getting out of control are simply aspects of poverty, okay? We associate visible aspects of poverty with crime. This doesn't mean that like there aren't criminals amongst the homeless population. Of course there are, but you don't make that assessment. You just see a homeless person and go, oh, ew, dirty, gross, crime. That's a criminal. He's going to come and yell at me. He's going to throw his poop at me. That's your immediate assessment when you see that. And then you walk around all day with that in the back of your head. You get in a fucking, you get in a subway car and you see a homeless person and in the subway car, you go, crime is out of control in the subways. Okay? Like that person might not be bothering anybody. Or even he might be loud and abrasive and experiencing a mental health episode, right? But even then, like our assessment of what is a crime, what is, contributing to the crime rate is entirely out of whack. And the example I can give you is like, if it wasn't a homeless person that was experiencing a mental health episode, but instead like, I don't know, a regular 9-to-5er in a fucking suit, you would treat that situation differently than you do with a homeless person. Okay? That's it. And you wouldn't immediately assume that this is like a criminal doing crimes. That's just kind of how it works. It is what it is. And for the record, this doesn't mean that it's good that there are homeless people experiencing mental health episodes in broad daylight that are subject to the elements with regular frequency. I'm not saying that at all. They need homes, okay? No one should be homeless. It's ridiculous that we are in the wealthiest nation on the planet and 600,000 people are going to be sleeping outdoors tonight, okay? That's crazy. That's insane. That's insane. That is unacceptable. And that is a policy failure. But the solution to that isn't to like, I don't know, sick the military on these guys and fucking kill them. Half of the guys are fucking veterans themselves, ironically enough. Okay? Not half, but a big chunk of them are veterans themselves. The solution to that is to tackle poverty, because people don't become homeless because of crime. People become homeless because of poverty, because they get priced out of the housing market. But of course, no one wants to solve that. No one wants to actually fix the problem. They just want to use the problem so they can do more fascism, so they can implement more mechanisms of violent control. And that's where we're at now. And there are still people that look at the system and go, nah, you don't understand. There's so much crime happening in D.C. and now the military is going to go in and fucking kill everyone that annoys me. Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
President Trump announcing he is taking control of Washington, D.C. and the police and deploying the National Guard.
I saw this piece earlier. It's very interesting. They're going to say a couple things here that trigger me to no fucking end. But unfortunately, that's the name of the game now. You're going to hear the Fox News host say, who cares about statistics? What actually matters is anecdotes. Okay? Get ready, because obviously the data doesn't correspond to the narrative that these guys are fucking cultivating. So either you have two options there. Either you tackle the data, you directly fight back and you say the data is wrong for this reason or that reason, or you just completely drop that and go, crime is up because I feel like crime is up. Okay? It's my personal feeling. It's my personal feeling that matters more. Trust me on this. Trust me on this. My feeling is that crime is up. I see black people all over the place. I see homeless people all over the place. And that scares me. And for that reason, I think we need the military. We need the military to occupy the nation's fucking capital.
In an unprecedented crackdown on crime in our nation's capital.
Mark Meredith joins us now from Washington with the latest. Hey, Mark. Ainsley, Brian, and Lawrence, good morning, friends. Once again, traditionally getting tough on crime is not controversial, but the White House is facing opposition from D.C. leaders after it vowed to help clean up D.C.'s streets. We got the idea of what the president's unveiling here. He's dispatching 800 National Guard troops, taking control of D.C.'s police department, and offering more federal resources to help the district get crime under control.
This issue directly impacts the functioning of the federal government and is a threat to America, really. It's a threat to our country. We have other cities also that are bad.
We also got a statement from D.C. City Council. They responded to Trump saying this is a manufactured intrusion on local authority. Violent crime in the district is at the lowest rates we have seen in 30 years. The statement goes on to say federalizing the police department is unwarranted because there is no federal emergency. But guys, crime is still happening, including overnight. There was a fatal shooting roughly 1 mile from the White House. Now we're hearing from D.C.'s U.S. attorney, who is urging local leaders to stiffen the punishments criminals may face for crimes both big and small.
We've got to repeal these laws of the left-leaning D.C. Council, one member of whom I just indicted recently, and we've got to make this place safe for the people in the district.
D.C.'s sole congressional delegate is calling this all political overreach, but D.C.'s police union is applauding the White House for taking action.
In order to fix this problem and make sure that it doesn't ebb and flow and that the feds come in and we lower crime and then they leave and we're left holding the bag, it's very important that people know that there is underlying legislation that needs to be corrected so that we can actually properly staff this police department in order to properly police the city.
Now, the president says he's open to additional crime crackdowns in major cities like Chicago and Los Angeles. The mayor of Chicago said if Trump were to send the National Guard, that it would destabilize the city. That's the quote out of Chicago. Lawrence, Ainsley, and Brian, back to you guys.
Mark, the dynamic was so fascinating yesterday because you have the mayor come out and go, well, crime is down. I don't know why he's doing this. He's got a pandemic mindset. But almost everyone in the press room is.
This is the best part. This is the best part. Get ready. Brian Kilmeade about to pop off.
Living in Washington or the surrounding areas. So you don't need to see a bar graph or a pie chart.
Don't look at it. Don't look at the pie graphs. Don't look at the bar chart. Don't look at the data. Don't look at the data. Don't look at the data. My feelings, and your feelings. Oh, you don't actually feel like crime is actually that significant of a problem in D.C., or you feel like it's gotten significantly better? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. My feelings over your feelings. Please stop. Stop looking at facts. Don't look at the data. Don't look at the data. What are you, gay? What are you, woke? They're fucking the framing here from a mainstream instrument of media is so alarming, dude. Like, these guys are supposed to be. There's certain things that they're not supposed to do. This is one of the things that they're not supposed to do, okay? As someone who studies criminology and lives in the DMV, this shit is so infuriating. It's just like, it's so fucking frustrating to be like, no, don't look at the data. Data lies. Data is a liar. Please. Your feelings. That's what matters.
The sense that no matter your proclivity or what you thought of the president, the people in that room know there's a problem with crime in that city, regardless of what stat is out there?
Brian, I couldn't agree with you more because statistics don't tell the entire story. And obviously, if you're a victim of crime or if you know somebody.
Statistics don't tell the reality. Oh, that's right. Hey, man, perhaps there is a need for statistics for this exact same reason. Because personal anecdotes, especially as it pertains to crime, are so emotional. When you have a degree of emotional investment, when you actually have like a low impact crime, let's say someone broke into your car, okay? Someone broke into your car. They didn't even steal anything. They just broke your window. That is a costly endeavor for you. But more importantly, it's an emotional endeavor. Why is it an emotional endeavor? Because you feel like your sense of security has been ripped away from you. I totally understand why someone who's been victim to such an act is going to feel insecure, is going to feel scared, okay? So that person is obviously going to think crime is actually completely fucking out of control. It's gotten out of hand, right? This is precisely the reason why we need empirical evidence. Why do we need empirical evidence? Because anecdotes are clouded by bias, okay? And especially when it comes to something like crime, if you have been mugged or if you have experienced some kind of crime, low impact, high impact, doesn't matter. Your personal relationship with this, your personal relationship with whether or not crime is completely out of control is going to be completely out of whack. We have no way. You have no way at that point to like make an assessment. It's just your own personal individual experience. And it is completely clouded by the emotional impact that had on your life. This is precisely the reason why we have to rely on data to make policy decisions. Because if we don't rely on data to make these policy decisions and we rely on like personal anecdotes, then we're fucking cooked. Then this kind of insane enforcement comes into mind as the only solution. Didn't you know that crime is a naturally occurring phenomenon that is not rooted in any systemic, economic, or sociological problems, and that people engaged in crime also aren't included in that classification of the people of DC? There are non-people. Yeah. You seriously need to wake up to the reality. Yesterday, a crowd of perhaps 15 to 20 people in keffiyehs and watermelon t-shirts were on my street, and I walked past them. They saw my star and looked at me with intimidation. I felt outnumbered and sincerely wondered what would happen if it had escalated. Yeah, this is a great way to describe exactly what I'm talking about. Like in E. Fatlow's mind, okay, this was an anti-Semitic hate crime. Do you understand? But in the real world, that's not what happened at all. Do you understand? Nothing happened. She is recalling an incident that wasn't an incident at all. She just happened to exist around other people. Okay? So what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to legislate off of the paranoid delusions of people? Is that what we're supposed to do? Is it really relevant, though? I feel like people will believe what fits best their narrative, no matter how valid evidence are. Shouldn't we focus on this fear or fight against it with emotions, feelings, rather than facts? I mean, sure, that plays a role in this commentary as well, certainly. But like first and foremost, I think it's important to address not only the actual facts, not only the reality, the facts, but also talk about why these guys have completely moved away and sidestepped the importance of like doing any sort of like real data analysis and simply are at the mercy of individual anecdotes, right? Because the difference to this is just like doing a man on the street interview with regular citizens of DC and asking them if they like having military on the fucking streets. Does that make them feel safe? The problem is the media never does that. Okay? Like, I'll give you another example of crime panic and also bullshit over enforcement of crime panic narratives. New York City subways are some of the safest around the planet, but there are still obviously incidents that take place in New York City subways. If you were to ask people in the media, they say it's bedlam. Okay? They say New York City subways are unimaginably unsafe, that there is a murder happening every 5 seconds. Okay? And what do you have to do to combat this fear that people have? You have to send in as many fucking militarized police forces as possible to the New York City subway so they can sit there and play Candy Crush. Okay? But at the time, if you were to ask people how they felt about all of these like heavy duty, heavy set, militarized cops at subway stations playing Candy Crush, they didn't like it. They didn't like it at all. Like the people who are actually commuters don't like it. But it doesn't fucking matter because you can frame you can frame it in an incredibly biased way. You can always find someone that says like, I feel much safer now that I know, Officer Hernandez playing Candy Crush on his phone is here collecting thousands of dollars in overtime. You know what I mean? Like you can find people that will say that. So you can craft a successful narrative around like how great this is actually. And that's precisely what Fox News does. As opposed to liberal media outlets don't do that, to develop a counter narrative to say like this is not something that people are fucking with. They don't like this. Feelings of unsafety is because guns are illegal. That's the other thing. You know what? One of the craziest things that they're showing in DC, they're like, gun violence is up. Gun violence is much higher in DC than these other fucking nations, right? It's like Dude, yeah. It's because they have hella guns, man. It's because we live in America. The solution to gun violence is obvious. It's gun control, but you don't want to do that. It's so fucking stupid. It makes me so mad that they do this, like, they do this thing that otherwise liberals used to do to describe like how bad gun violence is, where they'll like post gun violence numbers in DC to be like, look at DC gun violence numbers as opposed to fucking, I don't know, Honduras or some shit. And it's like, okay, yeah, because we're gunned up. Everybody's got a gun. Motherfuckers have guns for their guns, okay? We're printing guns. I am DC born, raised, and currently living in the DMV area. DC has been gentrifying for over a decade. The dwindling remaining black residents that comprise of the old chocolate city got fucked over years ago. Since at least 2008 by neo-lib Dens and Republican Mayor Fenty. Most have been pushed into Prince George's County, MD, and beyond already. Trump is already 20 years too late into this plan. President. Oh my God, Benny Johnson is in the fucking press pool today. Oh my God, I want to die. We got gum boo boo. Yeah, motherfuckers have la boo boo. We got gum boo boo. And we're talking about gun violence in DC. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I wonder why. Nah, it's just because it's black people. Black people are there. That's why. Please do not look at the one factor, that is ultimately so different in America.
Who is, it matters a much bigger deal to you as opposed to just seeing something on a bar graph. And you asked a question about the reporters. I'll tell you, I went to the Starbucks yesterday before going to the White House. I asked this barista, she's got a 4-year-old boy. She's out there every day at 5 in the morning working her butt off. I said, what do you think about the National Guard coming? She goes, thank God they've got to get the city under control, because she deals with the homeless in the store. She's got to deal with the crime in Anacostia. DC residents, yes, they are aware that this is going to be a huge political fight, but there is absolutely a crime problem in the nation's capital.
Yeah, if you live in a neighborhood, you just want safety. You don't care how it's done. So Donald Trump said that he's invoking this under Section 740 of the DC Home Rule Act. He had to notify Congress, right? Yeah. And he is able to bring in the National Guard for the next 30 days without having a vote from Congress.
Brother, a cool story, by the way. But also, even if it was true, how is the military the solution to this? We're such a stupid society, man. We are so fucking stupid. This wave of anti-intellectual thought has completely destroyed any kind of good governance that we could have. Okay? It's over. It's done. It's fucking Jover. There are homeless people everywhere. Okay. How do we solve it? I don't know. Fix the housing market. Offer them fucking permanent shelter. Okay. And then start the rehabilitation process with the housing first policy. Okay. Those are successful methods of combating homelessness. Nah, I don't want to do that. We should just kill the homeless with the military. We should use the military to kill the homeless. Okay, we'll just go with that one. Like, nobody asked why the guy is homeless, how he got there, how we can make sure that this doesn't happen again. We're just like, oh, I don't want to see it. Gross. Get him out of here. Kill him. Kill him with the military. Kill him dead.
Congress, is that right?
Ainsley, that is right. And he did notify the appropriate committees yesterday. So basically the clock is ticking. This gives Congress until mid-September to decide whether or not they want to extend the emergency. But this is unprecedented. We don't know what this is going to look like in the next week, 2 weeks, whether or not this is actually going to be well received by DC residents. Or
what do I say to people who think they're just lazy? I mean, majority of homeless people actually have jobs. They're just living out of their fucking cars. And it's not about laziness at all. Like, they literally work. They just are priced out of the housing market. A reality that is a lot closer to the average American than they think as well, by the way. You're like one fucking horrible medical incident away from also being on the streets. And many Americans are there. They just don't realize it and turn a blind eye to it. And they see, I've talked about this before with different tiers of homelessness. Like, I call it the 3 tiers of homelessness. Like, the most invisible tier of homelessness is the majority of homeless people, which are like people without permanent shelter, a permanent home, either couch surfing or living out of their cars. They still go to their jobs, you know what I mean? But then, like, because they don't have access to running water at any given moment all the time, it becomes increasingly more difficult to maintain your job. And then you go into tier 2 of homelessness, where you're like in the period where you're like kind of living outdoors and braving the elements and don't have any shelter whatsoever because you can't pay for your car or whatever, right? And then you're now living on the streets. And then you get to the last tier of homelessness in that process because like you're doing drugs to try and cope with your reality, to try and just, try and deal with your everyday existence where you're exposed to the fucking elements. And basically you arrive at the third tier of homelessness, which is what most people see or most people think when they think about homelessness, which is like a person who has been out there for a decade. And at that point, they've kind of lost their minds a little bit, understandably so. And they're constantly experiencing like mental health episodes in public. They have nowhere to go. And it's much more difficult for them to be reintegrated into normal society. But the idea that like people are homeless for fun is so idiotic. I don't understand how people say that. Like they just don't think about it at all. I guess like they in their minds they have like never considered how insane that statement is. Like I will never understand that. When people just go like, oh, dude, people want to be in that situation. It's like, dude, you are insane. Nobody wants to live in that situation. Brother, animals need shelter. Like they find caves to live in. You know what I mean? The idea that like a fucking whole ass human being is going to volunteer to live out in the fucking streets is insane. The only reason why you think that is because the shelters have no drug policies and the shelters actually have a lot of violence and a lot of theft. And therefore, some people do prefer to live literally outside in a fucking tent rather than living in a goddamn shelter, especially because shelters are not permanent anyway. That is an indictment on the shelter system being dog shit, more so than people's own personal choices of wanting to live outdoors. Yeah, you can't keep a pet. You can't keep your stuff in the shelter. There's so many different things. Like these are not non-persons. These are human beings,
Or if there's going to be pushback, my bet, Ainsley, guys, would be that by the weekend, when there's going to be an uptick in whether or not there's people out and about, whether we see more crime and how it's handled, if people say this is a good thing, or they're saying this is going in the wrong direction. But we had a fatal shooting just last night. So crime certainly, that was my favorite point, was that the council was saying there is no crime emergency. And then we had a fatal shooting 1 mile from the White House, Logan Circle.
Yeah. Yeah, one fatal shooting a mile away from the White House does not mean there's a crime emergency. What are you talking about? There's never going to be zero crime, dude. You say that there is no crime emergency because crime rates in the DC are down to 30-year lows. Okay? Well, my retort to that is that a crime happened last night. Oh, shit, dude. I didn't realize that not having an imminent crime emergency, I didn't realize that meant that like, no crimes are supposed to happen ever. Fucking got him. Sick. You know what the worst part about this is that the worst part of this narrative is that like a lot more people find comfort in this kind of fucking argumentation. And when the overwhelming majority of society is looking at it and saying, what the fuck do you mean there's no crime emergency? A murder happened. And that's like the best possible counter narrative against anyone that tries to say, hey, you have to look at the data to make these decisions. Like, what are you talking about? Like, people have actually tackled crime. Crime is obviously going to happen. It's not good that it's happening. And we should continue to try to solve this problem. But the real way to solve this problem is by focusing on the underlying material circumstances in which crime manifests. When you say that, the easiest counter to that is shut the fuck up, you nerd. You're woke and gay. Crime is happening, and I'm scared. So we have to kill them. We have to kill them all. That's it. It's endlessly easy to be right-wing. It's endlessly easy to make the person, your interlocutor, look like a fucking silly person by simply saying data is woke, data is lame, you're a nerd, shut the fuck up, my vibes over, my vibes and everybody else's vibes over whatever kind of fucking weird narrative you're attempting to push for. I'm scared.
Is a nice area of this city. Not that it means that it shouldn't happen in other areas, but it's still absolutely happening.
All right, Mark. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Our children, and the murder rates are plummeting. We are now able to report that the murder rate is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history.
Whoa, wait a minute. What? What the fuck? What the heli? What the heliante? Wait, hold on. I'm confused, bro. I didn't know he was just a little guy, by the way. That's kind of funny. Huh. Interesting. I guess it's already working. Donald Trump's true positioning has worked already in spectacular ways, in ways that you never thought was possible. Pre-crime is down.
In modern recorded U.S. history, thanks to this team behind me and President Trump's priorities, our children, and the murder rates are
interesting. So I guess crime is down after all. The reason why they won't use statistics is that they would have to show that red states have higher rates of crime than blue, and they will never admit that to their base. Yeah. How'd that happen? Oh, also, here's one reason why gun crime is a problem in America, including in D.C., in the nation's capital. Let's take a look. Maybe it's maybe guns could be a factor here to consider.
Out of time? That means he's had enough. Goodbye. Thank you. I want you to report on
But
this.
you said it's guns. You said it's guns on the street that's causing this problem. Are you concerned that the DOJ's funding cuts to gun violence prevention programs undermine the effort?
Stop it. We are putting all kinds of resources onto the street.
But what about the gun aspect of the gun violence?
Thank you guys. Thanks. Out of time.
That's great, man. I love having members of the administrative state and people in positions of power that are just like visibly drunk. You know, I feel so safe. I feel so fucking safe, dude. Don't you?
Thank you, Mark.
So, Brian, to your point, the press is in the city, right? We've heard stories for years. We've seen camera crews be attacked. But I'm sorry, their questioning of the president during the press conference yesterday wasn't reflective of that. And they kept citing numbers. Well, we have some numbers for you. So if you compare Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia's crime to everyone in the country, when it comes to total violent crime, it's the 10th highest in the country. When it comes to homicides, it's the 4th highest in the country. And vehicle theft, which we've heard this for years now with the carjack, they're number 1 in the country. So don't tell us that it's safe and the president's overreacting and that the numbers are going down when this is the case.
Yeah, we hear all about drugs down in Colombia, right? But when you compare D.C. to other countries around the world, look how much higher the murder rates in that capital city per 100,000 people is.
What's one aspect of the murder rates that are seemingly so much lower in these other capital cities? I can't seem to put my finger on the trigger. What could it be? Let me see. Hold on. What could it be? I just can't seem to figure out what the reason is. Okay? What could it be that Paris, London, all these other places, like, there's only fucking one. There's only one gun store in the entire fucking state of Mexico, in the entire nation, okay? They get all their guns from us. We give them the guns in exchange for drugs, of course. And even then, it's seemingly lower. What could it be? I just can't put my finger on it. Maybe it's because we are the gun burger nation state on the planet. America is an incredibly violent country, and it's incredibly easy to be violent in this country.
D.C. has almost 28. Colombia, 15. Mexico City, almost 11. Islamabad, 9.2. Lima, Peru, 7.6. Paris, 1.6. You get the idea. But D.C. is, 27 times higher than London?
So here's the thing. I think the mayor gets it. So she was like torn at her press conference because what city wouldn't want additional law enforcement to help suppress crime? It makes them look better. Number one, you want to make sure your neighbors are safe, and everybody knows it's not safe. The numbers are down to compare it where it was. And then I see this story yesterday. The Metropolitan Police Department confirmed that Mike Pulliam was placed on paid administrative leave. Why? Because he accused his commander of deliberately falsifying crime data. So Pullman, the former commander of the 3rd District of Columbia Heights, was placed on leave with pay and told he's under investigation for, get this, questionable changes to crime data. Now, he says that came after a week after he filed a complaint against the executive assistant chief for doing the same thing. So
the
one way or
numbers
another,
might not be right?
So more problems with the numbers. We always wonder, what are you doing with the numbers? It doesn't feel as safe. In New York City, they say it's never been safer. Eric Adams was here saying that. Well, you go, it doesn't feel that.
Just saying. I it's not even a question, okay? And it's not because red states are inferior or anything like that. It's because they have looser gun laws. It's that simple. It blows my mind. It fucking blows my mind that we just don't even, we don't discuss this. America's murder capitals 2025 ranking of the deadliest cities. As far as the murder rate, as far as cities with the highest murder rate, it's poverty and access to weapons. That's it. When you have poverty and you have access to weapons, it's a PvP unlocked area, okay? America is a PvP server. American cities are a PvP server. There is a major reason why people talk about how fucking safe they feel walking in the streets of European capitals. There's theft that happens there too, But it's because motherfuckers don't have guns, and you know that. So when you don't have guns, when you don't have readily available weapons, okay, when the guy coming up to you probably doesn't have an arsenal under his fucking coat, you feel a lot safer. Income inequality has a higher correlation than straight poverty, for sure. Yes, income inequality is right. It's not just poverty. It's poverty relative to wealth. I mean, even wealth and poverty are relative concepts anyway, but if you have an area that is wrought with poverty and then an area that is not, an area that is wealthy, you're going to have a lot of crime. They'll take away guns from low-income neighborhoods for a different reason, though. Bro, they will not. They cannot, and they will not. There is no way of just doing they're already trying to do that with stop and frisk. It doesn't work. There are so many guns in circulation that even if you tried to stop every single black person on the road with the assumption that they have a gun on them, or every single brown person on the road with the assumption they have a gun on them, which they tried in New York City, famously, it becomes an abject failure in gun violence prevention because guess what? It turns out it doesn't fucking matter. People still find guns anyway. They have tried this. I suspect the Trump administration will try to nationalize stop and frisk anyway. And it'll make people feel like this police state is doing some kind of enforcement. And it's enforcement that is heavily racialized anyway. So then the white people will feel safer about their guns. Using New York City as a benchmark for high crime rate is so unimaginably false and grasping at the highest reaching straws. What? I didn't. I'm saying that New York City tried to tackle gun violence by doing stop and frisk, which is a fucking racist ass policy, and it didn't work. It was a failure. They didn't find guns. They just ended up constantly stopping and frisking black people and brown people. That's all they did.
That way, and you certainly don't feel that way in the subways. And then you have the anecdotal information. But now I can't even believe the numbers are going in the right direction, even though the numbers are not strong. But guys, this is just the beginning. I think he's going Baltimore. I think he's going Chicago. I think he's going Philadelphia. I think he's going New York. And you know why? Because
I noticed you didn't mention any of the red states. Interesting. You didn't mention any of the red states or any of the cities, red cities in red states. I wonder, because like they have higher rates of gun violence in general by like a wide margin. I wonder, what is that about? He's looking at him like, I notice you're mentioning a lot of black cities.
Last time he saw what happened, he listened to the.
What's up with that? You mentioned a lot of places where black people live. I'm noticing that you're bringing up a lot of places where primarily there's a higher density of black people. What's that about, Brian?
Pushback when he put the national troops in Portland and Seattle, and then he pulled them back and said he was the problem. In retrospect, he knows he wasn't. Those cities were allowed to get out of control so they could blow off steam, and he said, not this time. And I'm doing it not for me. I'm doing it for the people of that city who didn't vote for me. I'm doing it for the country.
It's adults that deserve to be able to work safely, but it's also the kids. They deserve to grow up in safe neighborhoods and not be impacted by the gangs as well that is forcing them. Either you choose the
Yeah, Brandon Scott is a great example of like lowering the fucking homicide rate in Baltimore. I've talked about this briefly. A big part of that was obviously training programs for at-risk youths and also after-school programs in general. That's it. There's a solution for this, okay? Especially when you come across like youth crime, which is what started this process in DC to begin with. Like, kids need something to do. That's it. They're fucking kids, man. They're kids. They're kids. They're literally kids. When you're 15 years old, you're a fucking child, okay? Your brain hasn't developed. And they just need something to do. And if they don't have anything and they're fucking poor and they have, access to weapons, they're just going to fucking do crazy shit. It's that simple. It's literally, it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy when I explain it like this, where people are like, what do you mean? Like, you look at the Kia boys, right? Like, Tommy G has done extensive reporting on this stuff. He'll go to like some of the most like underserved, impoverished neighborhoods that are primarily black. Okay. And he'll interview these kids like that steal Kias with regular frequency and they're just like joyrided and shit. And it's incredibly fucking dangerous. Those kids, I can't believe like how people get mad when I say this kind of shit because they want me to like engage in heavily racialized, like aggressive language when talking about these children. But it's the same. They're no different than like white kids from rich neighborhoods. Okay. As a matter of fact, they have more reason because they have less options than white kids in rich neighborhoods that engage in similar kinds of like fuck ass behavior. Okay. If they had parks, if they had fucking tournaments, like sporting events and things of that nature, then they wouldn't be doing this shit. There's still obviously always going to be people that want to break the rules and do crazy stuff. You know, they're children, but children have a lot of energy. You have to put that energy into good use. You have to get them invested in a future. If they don't have any sort of future, if they know that they have no options, then of course they're going to do crazy shit. And that's how Brandon Scott was able to fucking lower the homicide rate in Baltimore, as a matter of fact. Comprehensive Violence Prevention Program 2021, shortly after taking office, Scott released Baltimore's first ever comprehensive violence prevention program, multi-year strategy. There's some issues that I have with this program. It's like, obviously it relies on cops a lot and heavy surveillance too. But he developed this with resident input to address gun violence holistically. The plan treats violent crime as a public health crisis rather than solely law enforcement issue, emphasizing prevention, intervention, and enforcement. Key components are targeted interventions for high-risk individuals, I talked about before, which identifies and supports those most likely to be involved in gun violence through outreach, social services, and job opportunities. Okay? Community engagement, collaborating with neighborhoods to build trust and provide resources like trauma-informed care and victim support programs. Data-driven metrics, regular tracking of progress, which has shown results such as 66% decrease in shooting victims and 31% drop in aggravated assaults in target areas by 2024. The plan has been updated and expanded in Scott's second term, with public safety listed as one of the top 5 core pillars. guiding this admin, is sometimes something as simple as literally opening the parks at night and throwing like basketball tournaments and shit like that. I'm not even joking. After school programs are so successful in eradicating youth crime. It is insane. It is so hard for us to comprehend what the circumstances look like when you are born into abject poverty in one of the fucking wealthiest nations on the planet. When you go to school and there's like 45 kids, the one fucking classroom, you can't even understand what the fuck's going on. Okay, you can't pay attention, and you have nowhere to go. You got nothing. You have nothing. You have no future. You have nowhere to go. And then, like, you know, older people in your vicinity are leading you down this other path. And you think, all right, well, these guys have cool shit. I want cool shit. I want nice things. I'll just do the things that they're doing. Sometimes it's that simple. Unless the city installs double rims, man. Yeah. Slight pushback. I went to a parochial high school with a bunch of other rich brat white kids, and even my school had a small band of boys who went around stealing cars, radios for the thrill. I don't think it even needs to be desperation. Kids are dumb and are going to fuck around. Poverty makes it worse, though. Yes. Obviously, the way that like rich, dumb white kids and the fucking crimes that they engage in for the thrill of it is obviously also seen differently than the way that black kids engage with similar kinds of crime or even worse types of crime. I don't disagree with you at all on this. I've said this as well. Idle hands are devil's tools is what my mom would say. Yeah, for sure. It's something so solvable too. It's crazy. It's so incredibly solvable. That's what sucks about it. But that's what I loved about the back to school drive that they were doing and the different programs that exist in places like this, and like specifically Southside Chicago, where if you were to offer a decent future to the next generation, they're not going to fucking choose to do fuck shit. Is that simple. There's obviously a heavy racialized component to this in the way that like broader society looks at crime when black teenagers are doing it versus crime when white teenagers are doing it. And it's very difficult to explain to people that sometimes refuse to understand this. It's kind of like Angel Reese or LeBron James or what's the guy's name? The football player, Deion Sanders' son, Shador. Do they sometimes engage in heated moments? For sure. Okay. But the way that broader society looks at their behavior is different than how they would perceive a white athlete in a similar circumstance. Because the hyper focus on it comes from a little bit of fucking racism. I don't know how else to describe it. I know that people get real fucking mad, but they get more scrutiny than a white athlete would. A white athlete would in similar circumstances. This doesn't mean that they're like perfect. I'm not saying that they're perfect. Make no mistake. I'm not saying that they are perfect. I'm saying that like most athletes do fucked up shit, okay? There's a lot of athletes that do crazy shit. The difference, however, is that sometimes high-profile black athletes get additional scrutiny, and the reason for why they get additional scrutiny for the same type of fuck shit that they engage in, that other athletes engage in as well, is because of the fact that they're like visible, loud, and black. Look. My point is, I use that as an example because it's like it's one that like it's an example that like a lot of people kind of understand. Okay, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because like it's not like the people that I just gave you, the people I just used as examples haven't done anything wrong. They have, but so has every other fucking athlete. You know what I mean? Like. But the hyper focus on these athletes in particular, I think sometimes come from the fact that they're black. That's why they become like a point of like a contentious point to defend or to support even. And it's very hard to explain. It's very hard to explain because most people will just say, well, look at this and that. Like, look at Angel Reese. Like, she's loud. She's brash. You know, she deserves it. Why are you trying to defend Angel Reese? I'm not even saying that, right? I'm not even saying that they don't have negative qualities to their persona that they've crafted. They do. They do. But it's just the extra attention that they receive that other people would not receive under similar circumstances. That is the racialized component, right? And the reason why I'm using celebrities is because this is like one of the more visible aspects, but you know, this happens to every person, right? This happens to black people all the time. This happens to brown people all the time. This happens to trans people all the time. Like there is extra scrutiny if you're not, there is always going to be extra scrutiny to like all the things that you're doing if you're not like a straight white dude. This doesn't mean that straight white dudes aren't scrutinized. It's just that this dynamic means that you get hyper focused on in a way that just kind of smells weird, you know, in a way that feels kind of strange, okay? In a way that is, I don't know, in a way that feels like there's extra attention on the things that you're doing. So it's something that people should always consider in the back of their minds. If you're a white person and you're doing this, you know, you should think like, do I actually get mad at this person because of like what they did, or like is it normal for me to fucking hyper scrutinize this person? Like is there some other reason why I'm like hyper focusing on this person? Why am I bringing this up? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because crime is just crime. It's the same crime when black people do it. It's the same crime when white people do it. And obviously black youths statistically have a higher likelihood of being born into an environment where they are most likely going to have less options, less career options, less educational options, and therefore they are more likely to engage in criminal behavior for that reason. But it's not any different than like white children in similar circumstances, but they're hyper scrutinized because they're black. And this presents a real issue in terms of finding an adequate solution, because the solution here is not to over police these neighborhoods. The solution is to actually offer additional resources to these neighborhoods, these communities. That's it. But we're not interested in doing that. We're not interested in doing that at all. Group violence reduction strategy, which focuses on group-related violence, e.g. gangs or crews, by offering individuals a choice: accept social services and support to exit violent lifestyles, or face swift enforcement if they continue. Initially piloted in select districts, the program was expanded citywide in 2025, including the Southern District, following early successes. Scott has publicly credited GVRS for ongoing crime reductions, noting its role in lowering homicides to levels not seen in 50 years by mid-2025. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott brought the murder rate down to 62% so far this year. How? Focus on youth and equitable development. Drawing from his own experiences growing up in Baltimore's Park Heights neighborhood, Scott has prioritized youth services to prevent crime at its roots. This includes investments in after-school programs. Oh my God, how shocking. Mentorship and job training to steer young people away from violence. Addressing juvenile repeat offenders through targeted interventions while acknowledging the need for accountability without overcriminalization. His administration also ties crime reduction to broader equity goals, such as neighborhood development and clean communities, aiming to reduce underlying factors like poverty and disinvestment. Advocacy and partnerships. Scott has leveraged national platforms to advance local efforts. As co-chair of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, he advises on gun violence prevention, including collaborating with the White House under former President Biden. He has pushed for sustained funding for victim support programs, criticizing federal custody grants that aid organizations like Victim Connect and Survivors.org. Partnerships with community organizations and law enforcement have been emphasized, leading to Baltimore dropping off U.S.'s news list of the 25 most dangerous cities for the first time in years. Measurable outcomes and ongoing efforts. By July 2025, Scott announced continued historic reductions in violent crime, with homicides at their lowest in 5 decades. In 2023, the city recorded 262 homicides and 636 non-fatal shootings, down significantly from prior years. While satisfied with progress, Scott has stated that he is not complacent, continuing to expand programs like GVRS and advocate for comprehensive strategies. Some note that factors like changes in prosecution under State's Attorney Ivan Bates also play a role, but Scott's administration highlights the plan's multifaceted, non-punitive elements as a key to sustainable change. We ask ourselves all the time, like, what's happening with young men? What's happening with young men? Why are they so fucking violent? Why are they so reactionary? Why are they so reactionary? And when we're talking about that, we're usually talking about white men, right? We're talking about white boys. And the reason why even white boys are experiencing more reactionary thoughts and more reactionary attitudes than ever before is also for the same reason, because they also don't think that society is going to give them a leg up or offer them a decent future. So when you shut off, when you shut off, yes, I said even white boys, as in the in-group that is supposed to be the most sheltered from the negative impact. Yes, in a white supremacist society, the in-group is not supposed to experience these sorts of negative these sorts of negative consequences. But the reason why they are experiencing it, the reason why they're also angry, is for the same reasons.